This is Neural Newscast.
Here is what matters for Wednesday, August 26th.
From Neural Newscast, I'm Peter Rowan.
And I'm Hannah Whitmore.
CIA Director John Ratcliffe arrived in Moscow on Tuesday for meetings with Russian officials. It marks the highest-level visit by a Trump administration official to Russia since January.
Before Ratcliffe's arrival, the United States informed Ukraine of the mission and requested a suspension of strikes while the delegation is in the region. The director traveled via Latvia on a C-17 transport plane.
The CIA has not commented on the specific agenda, but the visit follows earlier high-level preparations, including a planned meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky. The focus remains on regional stability.
This trip represents a significant diplomatic signal as the administration manages multiple foreign policy priorities. A formal briefing could follow later this week.
In agriculture, President Trump has announced a 90-day plan to temporarily lower tariffs on imported ground beef. The United States will allow 300,000 metric tons of product to enter without out-of-quota fees.
The administration claims this move will lower retail beef prices by 25%. However, livestock economists note that this volume represents only about 2% of the domestic supply and may save consumers just 30 cents per pound.
Domestic cattle industry groups have criticized the move, arguing it undercuts American ranchers who are already managing the smallest cattle herd in decades. They cite rising costs and foreign competition as primary concerns.
Food affordability remains a critical issue for voters ahead of the midterm elections. While shoppers may see temporary relief, industry experts say these savings are unlikely to be sustained beyond the 90-day window.
In other news, a French court in Bayonne has recognized cosmic radiation as a factor in the breast cancer of a former Air France flight attendant. It is a landmark ruling for occupational health.
The court identified radiation, passive smoking, and night work as carcinogenic hazards for Sophie Lenault, who flew over 12,000 hours. This decision allows her to take early retirement with full medical reimbursement.
A recent Harvard Medical School study found that flight crews have the highest level of radiation-related cancer deaths among hundreds of professions. Exposure is particularly high on polar routes, where the magnetic field is weak.
Air France stated that staff health is an absolute imperative, and they provide medical support beyond regulatory minimums. Legal experts believe this case will encourage more aviation workers to file similar claims.
Meanwhile, the Small Business Administration is proposing a sweeping overhaul that would raise the definition of a small business. Under the new plan, companies with $1 billion in revenue could qualify.
Currently, the revenue cap for most industries is $47 million. Expanding these limits could allow firms with 3,000 employees to access government contracts and loans originally intended for much smaller operations.
The agency says the changes will strengthen domestic production and reward growth. However, groups like Women Impacting Public Policy argue that the scale of the increase will force small businesses to compete with large rivals.
If approved, these changes would be the most significant shift in SBA standards in decades. The public comment period on this proposal will be the next step for business owners to watch.
In Washington, a dispute over the Kennedy Center is intensifying. Justice Department attorneys have threatened to demolish the venue if planned renovations are not permitted to proceed.
Attorneys called the building decrepit and suggested replacing it with an outdoor amphitheater. The conflict follows a court order that removed President Trump's name from the facade because it lacked congressional approval.
The venue's board recently voted to re-add the name and proceed with a 2-year closure. Lawyers argue that failing to recognize the president will cause donors to flee and structural rehabilitation to stop.
This case is part of a series of renovations the president has sought for Washington landmarks. The future of the site remains uncertain as the legal dispute over its status as a memorial continues.
Here is what else we are watching. Jared Kushner is set to visit Israel and Egypt next week for high-level talks concerning Gaza. The administration is pushing for regional de-escalation.
We are also tracking the deadline for public comments on the Small Business Administration's new size standards. business advocacy groups are preparing a formal response to the billion-dollar revenue cap.
Finally, agricultural economists will be monitoring beef supply levels following the tariff rate change. The 90-day window will be a key indicator for consumer price trends going into the fall.
I'm Hannah Whitmore.
And I'm Peter Rowan.
This has been Neural Newscast. Thanks for listening.
Hannah Whitmore is AI-assisted, human-reviewed. View our AI transparency policy at neuralnewscast.com.